This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the Dell Venue 8 Pro. Not just the unit itself, we already have a separate video review of that, so be sure to watch if you want to learn more. But today we're going to cover the Dell Active Stylus, which is available for $30 additional, and the case, or you can get them bundled together too from Dell. We're going to look at them now. So here we have probably the most interesting accessory that's available for the Dell Venue 8 Pro Windows 8.1 tablet. This is what Dell calls their Active Stylus. Now usually pen implies digital pen, stylus means a capacitive thingy. So this is really more of a pen. What's interesting for those of you who are into tablets and know about these things, usually there's two big players in the world of tablets with active digitizers, digital pens, and that's Wacom and N-Trig. This has neither. This is using Synaptics. Now Synaptics is a big name company. They've been making trackpads for years and also touch displays, and they're moving into pens now. So we're going to see how that does. First off, it's a pretty nice pen. It's got a metal barrel here, rubberized here, clicky buttons. This depends on the application as to what those might do. A sort of rubbery tip stylus. It's not as fine as, say, Wacom or N-Trig's, but it's pretty darn fine, certainly compared to a capacitive stylus. Got a little clip here so you can clip it on your shirt. Walk around like Mr. Nerd or Ms. Nerd if you want to, but it's good because you won't lose the pen. And there is a battery inside. Just like N-Trig, this uses a battery, and what we have is a quadruple A battery. That's 4 A's. Not the most common thing in the world, and it goes right in the pen barrel here. Now folks have been saying that they've had short battery life with the pen. With N-Trig they claim up to 6 months. I find it goes about 2 months if you use it a lot. We're still testing this one to see. Some people complain that they've only had it working for a couple of, like 3 days before the battery died. That would be extremely unusual, so we'll see, and in our full written review we'll let you know about that. Now the other accessory is Dell's case. You can actually buy the Venue 8 Pro bundled with both the active pen and with the case. If you buy the case by itself, it's going to be $40, and it sort of works on that kind of iPad principle where it's a little fold back kind of. It's got ridges right here. Pretty grippy on the edges, so you can pop it up fairly stably in a variety of positions. You get the idea. It sort of reminds me of waterproof umbrella material on the outside. Not unpleasant and not unattractive either. It's not bad looking, in other words. Feels pretty solid, pretty well made. Is it worth $40? Well, I don't know. Openings for the camera, and this is a clip-around case here, so fits into the case, leaves all ports open. Little plastic ridges around the edges give you some protection for the edges of the display, and so on. And this is what the case looks like all by itself. Pretty sturdy plastic here, so reasonably good protection from it. But let's look at the pen. I think that's the more exciting part of this. So this is an active pen. What that means, first off, is you get palm rejection, and it knows if you're coming close to the screen, it has hovering. Those of you who have used these before know that Wacom has pretty good hovering distance. N-Trig kind of small, too small for some folks. Another thing that means is pressure sensitivity, though they don't say how many levels of pressure sensitivity. We can see it's pretty obvious. I'd say that they've got about 700 levels of pressure sensitivity versus 1024 on Wacom and 256 on N-Trig. Anyway, the pen is kind of a disaster right now. Dell issued a firmware update pretty quickly for the display, because the pen was picking up hover marks too easily when taking notes, say in OneNote. So they've improved that somewhat, but in the process the hover is so aggressive and you really can't turn that off. It takes it as a click. So when the pen's away from it for a while, it doesn't notice it. But once it sees it, you see now I'm drawing squares, and I'm actually not touching the pen. If you could see those little dimples it's making as it's tracking the stylus. So it doesn't give you an arrow pointer, but it does give you a visual indicator, which is fine. The problem is, if you see what I mean, it's starting to do that and flap that around, and goodness knows it's going to start doing all sorts of things I didn't want to, and now it's doing this right here. I'm still more than an inch away. It's just not usable right now. As a substitute for a mouse, which this would be absolutely great for, it's not working out well right now. Given the small display and the small touch points, I think that's the attraction. Here I am doing this again, and this is a program called Pen Test. Those of you who go to tablet PC review forums know about this, and this is something that you can use to try to tweak and set the pen. It's a horror. Can it be fixed with firmware? Certainly it can. With Windows 8, the driver model is different. Windows actually supplies the drivers for all these digital pens, so you won't get driver updates, but you'll get firmware updates. Clearly, firmware update is needed. Now, if we go into Fresh Paint made by Microsoft, which is usually a pretty good application for drawing, I can see that the pressure sensitivity level is a bit off. It's still usable, but it's a little bit off. And it actually behaves pretty well for drawing. But I'm having to press a little harder than I would expect. You can see the pressure sensitivity. As I'm pressing harder, I get fatter lines. It's a little jittery in the tracking, so you don't always get the smoothest line. This isn't ready yet for art folks. But happily, it's not doing the weirdo things at all here with ghosting or anything like that. No phantom lines happening. So in that way, that's a good thing. Now let's take a look at ArtRage 4, which supports Windows API for pressure sensitivity, so you don't need to have Wacom to use ArtRage with pressure sensitivity. And we'll go for a pointed brush. And that has very good tracking. They're doing a great job here. And I can make a fairly smooth line, so ArtRage a whole lot better. You can see the latency, though, in tracking speed. It's not keeping up with my fast circles at all. Again, more work to be done by the folks at Synaptics to make this work, and oh my god, see, it's still working and keeping up. And that's not because of the Bay Trail Atom. It's fast enough, really, to handle art applications. It's more like they need some driver updates. So not so much great for art types. Next we'll address note-taking for those of you who want to use OneNote. So here we are inside of OneNote, and pen has been away, so it's not going to start doing the hyper-tracking just yet. And that's not too bad. The thing is, once it sees the pen, here it is again, I'm not actually touching it. So if you're the kind of person like most of us are used to hovering over the paper waiting to take your next note, you're going to get all sorts of extraneous marks. That has been improved by the firmware that we loaded on here. It used to be even worse, but still needs some work. So sad to say, folks, that hopefully Dell and Synaptics will get things working better quickly. Right now, the pen is not mightier than the finger.